We now move to the presentation of our honorary graduate. Now, we award honorary doctorates, honorary graduates, rarely and with great care and attention and thought. So it's always a special moment when we make someone an honorary graduate. I'd now like to invite Helen Kennedy, the head of the School of Media, to present Akala. So please stand here.
Vice-Chancellor, distinguished guests, graduates, families and friends, it is my honour to introduce Akala. When the university considers awarding honorary degrees, we seek out those who've not only pushed the boundaries of their field for the benefit of society more widely, but we look for individuals who also reflect the core values that are so important to us at Brighton. These are the values of creativity, sustainability, partnership and inclusivity. Today, we seek to honour such an individual. Akala is a BAFTA and MOBO award-winning hip-hop artist, but he is also so much more. He is also an acclaimed writer, cultural commentator, activist, and social entrepreneur who believes passionately in the power of education to empower and enrich lives. As he said in an interview in 2017, "If I could solve something as complicated as conflict in the world, I would change the education system, full stop. Not just along the lines of race, but along the lines of how people are taught to view the whole of human history and on what education provides. It doesn't provide any spiritual or emotional well-being." As a musician and a performer, he's appeared at numerous festivals in the UK and internationally and has led innovative projects in the arts, education and music across Southeast Asia, Africa, India, Australia and New Zealand. He's also the co-founder of the Hip Hop Shakespeare Company, a music theatre production company aimed at exploring the social, cultural and linguistic parallels between the works of William Shakespeare and that of modern-day hip-hop artists. He was born Kingsley James Daly in London in 1983 and started releasing his own music in 2003 under his assumed name Akala, a Buddhist term for immovable. His work went on to be recognised with a MOBO Award for Best Hip Hop Artist, and he's performed all over the world, including Vietnam, USA and Brazil. Akala has appeared on several main TV channels promoting his music and poetry, speaking on wide-ranging subjects from music, race, youth engagement, British, African, Caribbean culture and the arts. His numerous online lectures and performances with titles such as A Critical Look at Western Education, The Battle of Britishness in the Age of Brexit, and Race, Class and Britain's Modern Myths have reached millions of viewers on YouTube. More recently, he's become known for his compelling, inspiring lectures and incisive journalism. He has spoken at many universities, the International Slavery Museum and Sydney University, and has been involved in campaigns to decolonise the curriculum. He's written for The Guardian, Huffington Post and The Independent, and spoken at the Oxford Union and for TEDx. His recently published and well-received book, Natives, Race and Class in the Ruins of Empire, compellingly and unflinchingly draws together many themes, both political and personal, that run throughout his work. As he himself has said, "My mum's a white Scottish woman and my dad's a black Jamaican. So for my life not to be about bringing people together would almost be a contradiction in terms. I want to reach everybody, but do it truthfully and honestly. That's got to be your ambition and your ultimate aim as an artist. That's what the best artists do. I'm not saying I'm there yet, but that's what I aspire to." Vice-Chancellor, distinguished guests, graduates, families and friends, in recognition of his major contribution to empowering young people through learning, it's my absolute honour to present Akala for the honorary degree of Doctor of Arts at the University of Brighton.
Hand it the other way. We do. So, Akala, for your amazing contribution to empowering young people through learning, I have the greatest privilege of conferring upon you the honorary degree of Doctor of Arts from the University of Brighton. Can I ask you to address the audience?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I think there are a few things in life more embarrassing than standing up in front of thousands of people and having people say nice stuff about you. I think it's interesting. I think this isn't part of my speech, by the way. It's just something I thought of when I was stood up there. I think there's something really quite British about getting embarrassed about people saying nice things about you. I assume if we were Americans, we'd be like, yeah, and just take it on the chin. But I don't know. But anyway, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. So I prepared something to say to you guys, and it goes as follows. I never went to university. I barely went to college. This was not because of lack of interest in academia, but rather as a result of a strange set of circumstances. My mum was the first and only one of her siblings to go to uni, and even she did this as a mature student after having children. And my dad had a very tough relationship with the British education system, to put it mildly. Despite this, and despite growing up on free school meals with just one parent in the home for most of my childhood, or half of my childhood, I was always pushed to succeed academically. This extra push came from a hard-won, extracurricular, Pan-African, British Caribbean, working-class intellectual tradition. In the 1960s and 70s, amidst the global currents of the Cold War, civil rights, and black power, British Caribbeans found themselves rather dissatisfied with the manner in which their children were being educated, or frankly, undereducated, in Britain's schools. And as a response to this, the community set up scores of Pan-African Saturday schools to help their children with their homework and to teach them episodes with African Caribbean history that were not well known. I went to one of these schools, combined with regular visits to the radical community bookshops that accompanied the setting up of these schools, and with all the energy my mother, godfather, a few key teachers, and my uncles put into pushing me to do well in school, I emerged with one of the best sets of GCSEs in my year. I went to the Royal Institution Mathematics Masterclasses, and I took my Maths GCSE a year early. I don't say any of this to show off. Well, maybe I am showing off a little bit. But to give an extra thanks to that hard-won intellectual tradition that I was the lucky beneficiary of. When I was placed into a special needs group for kids who did not speak English at primary school, it was my Pan-African Saturday school that found out and informed my mother, and then went up to school and had a word, to, again, put it mildly. During my secondary school years, teachers like Mr. Mohammed, in fact, there were two Mr. Mohammeds, one of whom is here today, but he was a visitor to my school. There was one who was in my school as well, gave up their Friday evenings to pick up where my primary year's Pan-African Saturday school had started. Others, like my Uncle Hoffman, who is also here today, continually encouraged me all throughout my school years to do well. And it was from this DIY self-education tradition and from actually hip-hop music that I partly gained the self-confidence, desire, and will to start my own record label and pursue a career as a hip-hop artist. And it was from that tradition that I got my own desire to mix hip-hop and education, as we have done with the Hip Hop Shakespeare Company. While I, of course, despite all of this, still benefited from the British education system, my personal relationship with formal education was quite fraught by the time I left school. For this reason, and partly because I was just playing football and the British football system still doesn't encourage its football players to be overeducated, I did not go to university. I now lecture at universities regularly, and I can't lie, I often envy those of you that do get to go, people like you, who get to be surrounded by other people at the beginning of their journeys into adulthood and who are about to remake the world, or at least this country. That's how serious these 4 years are. What will you do with the time you have spent here and the education you have been privileged to be loaned by the rest of society? If there are two pieces of advice I could offer you as a university graduate, coming from someone who did not go to university, the first would be about the importance of developing good habits. You cannot control your life's outcomes, as much as we'd all like to believe we are solely products of our own brilliance, but we can control a good deal of how we use our time. If there was one thing I learned from the time I spent playing football, and from the little time I spent flirting with being a naughty boy with my friends in the street, it's that habits, both good and bad, tend to accumulate. Once I realized I did not love football anymore, and I stopped pretending I was a bad man, I decided to use my art to try and spread what was really my major passion, knowledge. And to that end, I started keeping a reading diary with a minimum amount of hours per week, per month, and per year that I would spend studying. That was 10 or 12 years ago. To some extent, my presence here today is as a result of that. So when you leave here today, try and practice every day towards goals, dreams, and things that you would like to do, even if it is only half an hour per day. And when you look back in 15 years, I have no doubt that you will see the results. Not all education occurs in the academy, but what you have learned or not learned here will certainly be important to your future one way or another. The second and final piece of advice would be about obligations. As my friend, the great African-American scholar and one of the youngest professors in American history, M.K. Asante, says, if you make an observation, you have an obligation. If you notice something that is wrong with the world or something that needs fixing, what do you do about those things? So what do university graduates owe to the societies that have subsidized and educated them? How best can you use what you have gained here to make the world a slightly better place and more livable for other people, even if it's only in small ways, however cliche that may seem? So, good luck on your journey, and here's a big up to habits and obligations. Knowledge is power. Safe. Thank you very much.